Hello!
What was that? That felt kind of weird. I'd previously looked at the little KingKong Tiny 7, really fun indoor flyer, and I really like the fact it comes complete in its little sandwich box and it's very easy to take around. But a couple of people asked me about the 7X, so I managed to get hold of one. It comes in a slightly bigger box, but an enhanced box. I'm strangely loving these boxes. Big difference between the 7X and the 7. This takes 7mm brush motors, this takes 8mm, I think it's 8.5mm brush motors. Generally more powerful. I've sometimes stayed away from larger motors indoor because they make the quad heavier, and heavier quads crash heavier and get a bit more damage. But I thought I'd like to check this out anyway to see how it goes, because outside this really struggles. So see if this is a bit better. Now there was one issue on here. As per usual, I always ask for Free Sky products. So this has a little label on it saying it's Free Sky here, but a little tick there saying DSMX2. And when I looked at this, it's got the tick for DSM. So I think I've got the Spectrum version, but I'll come to that later. Anyway, this box, an amazing box, because now you have a separate accessories compartment here with gubbins like props. I'll just get them all out here anyway. We've got in here 3 pairs of props, 3 replacement canopy things, prop removal tool, a couple of little spare bits, some battery adapters, not quite sure what they're for, the instructions. But if you're thinking where's the actual quad itself, it's in the different section just here, of which you've got this little compartment here to store the batteries. You get in it, this is the advanced pack, and these are high voltage 4.35 volt batteries, 3 of those. You've got here a tiny little battery meter which can display the health of your battery. The quad itself there is held in with this little elasticy band thing. Let's just take that off. And looks pretty much exactly like the normal 7S, except it's, well, this one's pink and a little bit heavier. But another really cool thing in this box, this blew me away actually. The previous advanced pack had this really nice little multi-charger. This one, they've built it into the box. If you look here, you can plug a USB or a 2 to 4S LiPo on an XT60. And then inside, you can charge up to 6 LiPo batteries, just stick them in the thing. The reason I love it so much is just, it all goes back in the box, you put the top on. If you want to take it places, it's so solid, it's not got a problem. And all your charging and everything is in there, which is really cool. I like that. Well, here they are. Here's the 7 and here's the 7X. And yeah, it just feels just a touch heavier, but aside from that, they look pretty identical. I'll shove them on the scale and get an actual indication of their weight. But aside from that, first thing to do is to see what the Betaflight setup is, see what actual receiver I've got in there, because that's quite interesting to know. And then we'll charge up and get flying.
Now, I'm not going to show Betaflight setup for this one because there was really nothing to do. You might want to go in and change your modes though, because it was just angle and arm available, and I upped my super rates. But yeah, I did have the Spectrum version, and what happened was I flew 3 batteries through it, the first 3. But what I've got this multi-protocol radio which has a known issue with the gimbal not centering, and I thought I might get away with it on this one, but I really didn't. It felt a little bit loose, and that's because the stick, it's like up to 100 positions out when you come back to center, so around the center stick it's just mushy basically, you know what's happening. And basically I crashed a whole bunch of times, and I thought, well, I really didn't get a true impression of it. So what I did, I opened it up. It's fairly easy to get into. It's not really a problem to remove the receiver. Of course, if you got one with the wrong receiver on it, I wouldn't suggest you just go ahead and sort it out yourself. You'd be wanting to contact Gearbest or whoever you got it from and say, oi, you sent me the wrong thing. But anyway, I replaced the Spectrum receiver with this little Free Sky compatible D8 one and put it all back together. Really easy to solder. The only hassle is getting the actual canopy back on. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's okay. So this is back on my 4th battery. Now I've got the right receiver, and I just wanted to make sure I could fly fairly gently around, and it all comes together fairly well. I noticed on this one there's a lot less of the props in view, which has got to be a good thing, because there was quite a lot of screen lost to this. This has got a 10% tilt on the camera. Maybe that just gets rid of it a little bit. And as you can see there, you can bash into things and it's pretty good. And I'm not having too much of a problem getting around it and being fairly gentle. I do feel there's a weight to it though. What I noticed on the 7 is, and I should point out, going down the stairs there, it just handles its own prop rush so well. that's where the 7 really fell down. But where the 7 was very good is feeling light. On the 7 you didn't have any hassle controlling height. On the 7X it feels a little bit heavy, like it's going to drop all the time. Now what I probably could do with is sorting out maybe a little bit of throttle expo just to help myself out there. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. There's a little bit more, give it higher throttle if you need to drop down at all. So this is my second battery using the FreeSky receiver, and I'm still in angle mode but having a good old fly around. Now outside there's a little bit of a breeze. It's not by any means a windless day, and it's actually coping pretty well. This is where the 7 was a lot more difficult to control. I mean, it's lumpy and bumpy in places, but it doesn't get blown out the sky like the 7 does, so that's definitely a good thing. You can really yaw it quickly to throw it around the corners, which is really good for getting around the house. Approaching this window just looks like a white nothingness for starters, but you go out there, and again it handles this coming down very nicely, which is again where the 7 really went badly wrong. But this is really nice. I really kind of like this sort of the indoor-outdoor idea, just finding little lines to race around and see what you can find. No problem with the control range. I was getting some breakup, as you could see there, from the FPV picture just when it was out in the garden. That's through several thick walls. Out through the terrifyingly strange window again. And this was the ultimate bravery test in my opinion, trying to find the tiny hole whilst handling the FPV breakup and getting back in through that window there. Great fun to do though. Now on these you can feel when the battery's starting to get a little bit flat. It feels a little bit spongy in the throttle. You notice yourself having to give it more. But I was getting generally just under 5 minutes, so 4.5 before I noticed anything. But I suspect the best way to fly is do about 4 minutes on a timer to get the sort of maximum decent flight you can get out of a battery. So on this last battery, for some reason I got a little bit more interference lines. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it took one too many knocks to the head. But I'd done some manual mode flying using the other controller, and that was okay. So I tried it in horizon mode just to help me out get back into line, and this seemed to sort of really work on this one quite well. I kind of felt like I could put flips into regular flying. You just have to manage the throttle and sort of be ready to come hard on the throttle when you come out of any sort of maneuver. But you know, it's one of the few quads I've been able to sort of flip and roll inside quite comfortably. And again, outside where you've got the room, it's not really a problem. The only thing I feel about Horizon, which is why I don't like it as a mode generally, is it does feel like it's fighting you. So you can get a lot more speed by pushing forward. But I think I feel like I'm in manual mode. I feel like I should be able to take my thumb off and the quad stay there, but of course it comes back. So occasionally I'm flying forward and I release and then I realise and put back on it. You sort of end up with a little bit shaky footage. But yeah, you can definitely fly it faster using this sort of mode. I mean, you can see here how the camera works in the light, which is not brilliant if you've got a great big sunlight and you're in the dark, but the general picture I'm getting for it is very good. Could just do a bit of a better antenna on this thing. It's basically a small piece of wire sticking up out of the flight controller. There's no suggestion it's any sort of dipole or anything else like that. It's just literally a wire. But yeah, I was able to go fast enough here that to feel like I'm watching my own viewpoint and thinking, have I speeded this up? It's really it's probably quite sedate to look at from the outside, but in the goggles it feels scarily fast as you're tearing through your house on this little tiny quad here. Now, another thing that quite impressed was its ability to take a bump. I've already shown you a bunch of crashes I did, and I did a bunch more outside as well, but this thing banged into the walls and stuff and bounced off and just kept going, which was quite impressive, because often with these little tiny quads, getting upset that much can basically push them out of the air and straight into the floor. But this did very well. And down we come, all safe and sound. Well, what a fun little quad this is. Really strong indoor flyer, and one that doesn't mind going out into the garden. And I would stress, when I say, you know, you can go outside, it's more of a garden thing or a tiny park. You wouldn't want to fly this in a field. There is no beeper in this. There is no possibility of being able to use some way of finding it.
if it goes down, other than, you know, the signal from your FPV goggles or anything. So be very careful if you go outside. So it handles the wind much better than the regular Tiny 7, but I'm not suggesting this can go out in anything more than really a light breeze. So for goodness sakes, don't take it out on a proper windy day, else it'll just whoosh away and you'll never see it again. But yeah, noticeably more power and speed, and a benefit from a very slightly tilted up camera. It's only 10 degrees, and it doesn't feel like you're having to point upwards, but it makes a hell of a difference for being able to see much better out of past the frame, which the previous model really suffered with. However, I wouldn't say this makes the 7 redundant. The 7 was so good at being able to hold position and fly really, really gently. So I would say if you're into sort of flying gently and exploring things, you know, being able to get in every nook and cranny above shelves and into and under desks and stuff, and think of it as a slow explorer type thing, this is really good. If you want your house to go by in a whiz and fly very fast, then this is where this comes better. You can fly it slowly, but you've got to be more careful on the throttle management. Now this is just a feeling of mine from the out-of-the-box experience. I can tune it a little bit more to help me with the throttle and it'd be better. But in terms of the feeling I get, I feel this is easier to control very slowly. This is easier to fly very fast. If I had a slight complaint, it would be that the box actually did let me down. As I said before, I love this charger, and one thing to warn you about is there's 2 banks of 3 charging ports, and I was plugging into, it just says number 1 here, and plugging in USB, and nothing was coming on. If you look very closely, you'll find out that these ones on the right are USB only, and the other ones can do from a LiPo. So if you use a LiPo, you can do 6 at once. If you use USB, 3 at once. Now the problem I've got with this is, if you look in the manual, it says that the default charge is 4.35 volts, brilliant, but having had 5 of these little G&B 450 regular LiPos for the normal Tiny 7, I thought, oh, I could get those all charged and I could fly forever. Because yeah, you wouldn't get quite as long as flight time, but it'd still be pretty good. It says, if you use 4.2 charging, please reference instruction. But this is the instruction. I thought there was going to be a switch or something. What there does seem to be is solder points on the inside of the PCB there, where you'd have to solder 2 jumpers together in order to do a 4.2 volt charge. So that's a little bit of a disappointment that I can't use any battery and just take it in here, because that would be really cool. As it is, I have to just use the high voltage ones. So yeah, really good. I mean, the weather's picking up, so it's not quite the fact that we're stuck indoors now, but because, moans about the charger aside, because this is so self-contained, you put everything in the box, you take the box with you and you plug the box in. It's so good for a little travelling quad. Now again, I'm not suggesting you go out in a big field or a beach or somewhere where there's wind and fly it around, but for me, like when I took the Tiny 7 and flew it around where I was with my caravan, it was quite good fun, apart from the fact it fell out of the sky whenever I did a flip, because it just got caught in its own prop wash. But that sort of thing where you're just away on like a day and you're in a small area, and you know, you can put this in a bag and get it out and charge it up pretty easily. Really good. I think really fun. So anyway, yeah, this is the LDARC, formerly KingKong, Tiny 7X. I've got the advanced pack, and this was sent for review by Gearbest, so thanks very much for them. Of course, if you want to check it out, there are links down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.